multi-story building because I committed to saying we're going to increase the insulating capacity and increase the window and the quality of the roof. So it took that new model and extended it into the larger building with a high floor, a mid-floor, and a low floor.
And the community room.
Yes.
Okay, and one other question I had was storage. We store a lot in Village Center. And so if the basement here wasn't, there's always, space is very hard to identify right on the spot, but if you did a facilities plan for the village of Shorewood and we could move some storage out and it was acceptable, not that it would be, but then you have more facility space in a facility that is more conducive to renting.
Take a look at all those spaces. If you've got fallow space that could be, you could avoid renting somewhere else. Just got to work that out in the agreement, but there's space.
Salt shed. Oh, sorry.
There's space there. So if you're looking at it saying, can we optimize that? A lot of people store a lot of stuff in the basement.
Yeah, the village center has a lot of storage, and people all want to be at the village center. I know this, right? So if you move the storage out, you might have more office space.
It works, and it's probably, you said it was in support of village activities, and other locations were not centralized, there would be some commodity.
In Shorewood, people don't store things in the basement.
Well, given recent
Unless
great
you have,
events.
unless you have something.
And you certainly have an experience with that. In 2007, we had
Yeah.
issues there.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions? Mr. Wilson.
Pat Wilson, 4451 North Ardmore. I'm just wondering if there's any way to make a comparison of the environmental impact of tearing down a new construction versus and having to haul away all the material and put it in a landfill versus preserving it.
Yeah, we do that. If you were going to be LEED certified, that would be part of that submission requirement, so it can be done. Yes. It has not been done, but it can be done.
And I'm assuming all those hauling away and everything, that's why it's so much more, that's what offsets the cost for new construction.
If demolition's expensive because you got to put it on a truck, trucks are expensive, you got to find a place to put it, you pay money for that. So if you can avoid demolishing, you save money.
Okay, thank you so much. That completes that first portion of the meeting. So the second, thank you, John, if you want to stay, please feel free to do so. We have a historical review of the site itself from a resident group that has asked to be on the agenda, and I believe it's a 5-minute presentation?
10.
10.
I don't know, it's all right.
Okay, do you want to introduce them or do you want to?
Happy to introduce them. I live in Lower North, so it's not. And I've lived in Shorewood about 30 years. And when I heard that the firehouse might be replaced, I was quite surprised. And talking with neighbors on my block, they felt the same amount of surprise. And we felt moved to try to get the story of the firehouse. And we thought it was important to learn about the building and about the architect. And we wanted to create the story and present that story to the village as a companion to the financial look at the building. We thought it was important to try to give some value to the historical piece of this story. We did a lot of research. We did a lot of internet searches. We talked to the Shorewood Historical Society. There was some diving into archives in the Milwaukee County Historical Society. And we have some information we'd like to present to you, and I appreciate being on the agenda. And my neighbors will be doing the presentation with PowerPoint. I just want to point out also that the PowerPoint is in your packets, and behind the PowerPoint is the content for a postcard that we are making available to the residents. Talks about the history of the building and information about the architect. And as a companion to what Rebecca does in her Thursday manager memos, we invite people in this postcard, we invite people to this meeting and to the meetings on the next 2 Mondays. And so that content is flyers in there as well. So I'd like to introduce my neighbors, Dawn Blackmore and Joan Gorman.
My name is Dawn Blackmore.
And I'm Joan Gorman.
And we are your neighbors. It is our pleasure to present to you the historical, cultural, and architectural significance of our Shorewood Firehouse. When we started working on this project a few weeks ago, one of the first places that I looked to begin compiling information was the Village of Shorewood website. And I wanted to start there because I wanted to see if there were any guiding principles I could find that would help with this decision of what to do with the firehouse. Is this going to work? Can I press the button? How about this one? Okay, here we go. So you can go, if you go on the Shorewood, Village of Shorewood homepage, and you click on economic development, this is the graphic that comes up. It says, what makes a place great? And as I looked at it, so many words jumped out at me that directly pertain to the firehouse. Words that I underlined in red, like historic, attractive, charm, homegrown, real, unique, special. I'm going to start crying here. Useful, convenient, walkable, proximity, continuity, pride, stewardship. And there was also a short paragraph on that page, and the sentence that I cut and pasted there. I'll read that aloud to you. That also really stood out to me. The benefits of community development, such as employment and infrastructure, come through local people changing attitudes, mobilizing existing skills, improving networks, thinking differently about problems, and using community assets in new ways. We view the historic public safety building that houses the firehouse to be a community asset. How does preserving the firehouse support the Village of Shorewood's guiding principles for community development? So these red words that you see, you're going to see them on all the slides. Those are taken from that graphic on the Village of Shorewood website. And we'll start with comfort and image. This building has stood for 90 years. That picture in the left is, if you look at it really close, you can see the debris. That is from the Milwaukee County Historical Society. That is from 1929. That's when it was just newly minted. It's this building right here, through the window. And then there's another one that's from 1960. That's in the Shorewood Historical Society book. And there, that's also credit Bob Dean from the Shorewood Historical Society. He provided us with that. That was taken 2 weeks ago. That's what we see commonly when we're going down Murray Avenue. That has the original public safety building. You can see it's smaller up in the black and whites. That's on the right-hand side, closest to us right here. And then the 1965 edition, which looks almost identical. The care that they took with that, Joan will speak about. So this building has stood for 90 years. People who have grown up here, left, come back to visit, or even maybe come back home to come back here to settle and buy a home, they see that building and they see it here still standing, and it brings them comfort. It is a touchstone to their past. They can share memories of it with their children, of when they toured the firehouse. I just took an Atwater group of 4-year-olds in February to tour that same firehouse. It is part of our village image. And to quote from our village website, it's a place designed in the European tradition. It is attractive, charming, and historic. And now Jonah is going to continue with a little more about the building's history and introduce you to the Shorewood architect who designed it.
So I am the example of the lifelong resident. My mother was a lifelong Shorewood resident. She grew up on the corner of Kramer Street and Shorewood Boulevard, where the condos are now. I'm also a lifelong resident, living in the home that I grew up at 4228 North Ardmore. My brother likes to call it the Gorman Museum. The house was built in 1927, a year before our historic fire station. I think of myself as the poster child for connection to space. Legacy architecture is important to place. It tells us where we came from, and it tells us who we are. As a child, my Brownie troupe toured the firehouse shortly after the addition in the 1960s. I especially loved the turret in the back, where they hung the hoses to dry. There were several more visits to the firehouse with my school classes. Another important part of my history was Hubbard Park. That was a frequent destination through Brownies and Girl Scouts for many picnics. In high school, my friends and I started the first girls rowing team on the river. We would run the stairs before practice and then get out into our scull and race towards the North Avenue Dam. The first time I saw the Public Works building as a child, I thought, how great is this? We have 2 castles in our vision, in our village, another turret. I was a child that wore a tutu year-round. In the winter, I put a turtleneck under it. So I felt like I was home. The Atwater Beach Pavilion was another beloved place for adventure. It was shelter from the sun on a hot day. And I'll never forget the feel of the cool, sandy tile on my hot bare feet. So as a villager, of course, I was interested in working to save the firehouse. Rosie and I met on the street, and she says, you know, we both felt kind of interested. But it was when I realized the full picture that I said to my teammates, I felt like my hair was on fire. I learned that it was designed by a local architect, and that he had designed not only the public safety building, but all of my favorite buildings. There was no turning back. Colonel Henry Hengels was born in McHenry, Illinois in 1876. And graduated from the Armor Institute in Chicago. He worked in Wisconsin as an architect and engineer, and in 1916 he designed and built his home on the corner of Kensington and Frederick. When we initially started looking into this, the address was Kensington, and we drove down the street and there was not an address that had been referenced. That was because it was the first house on the block. And the address now is actually Frederick. So 4501 on Frederick used to be Kensington. Once you become familiar with Colonel Hengel's other works, you'll recognize his distinctive style. His use of bricks, mixing colors and patterns, his artful fenestration, and his decorative wrought iron, as seen under our public safety building windows. Colonel Hengels was appointed to be the state military architect in 1920, which was a true honor, and designed most of the armories in Wisconsin from 1920 till 1943. I was traveling for work and spent a week in Janesville at the hospital there. I got a break the one day and decided I'm going to find the Armory in Janesville. And Janesville has really had a hard time financially. So here I am going to find the Armory, and I realize on my little iPhone that it's close by. So I go over and I go, oh my gosh, the decorative brick, the attention to detail, the beautiful masonry, and the building is pristine in an area where everything is falling down. And then I noticed that the door looked like it might be ajar. So I went up, peeked open the door and just said, hello. Somebody came out and said, hello. And I said, well, we're trying to work with our local firehouse designed by this same architect. And she goes, let me give you a tour. And the inside reminded me of the Hubbard Park Lodge. It was like going home. So this beautiful building that's used as a center for events. In 1928, Colonel Hengels designed the public safety building, housing the police and fire departments. In 1936, he designed Hubbard Park Lodge, the Women's Club, the skating pavilion, which is also known as the Boy Scout cabin, and the Public Works building. In 1937,